Okay. All right. Everything is looking okay. Just checking my notes here. Checking a couple things. Just bear with me for a moment. All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone who might be watching this and who will potentially be watching this. Um, as I've said, the with the last book being finished, I wasn't certain what I was going to do from here on out, but I knew I wanted to continue doing these. So I may change the frequency, may push it back a little bit, so I have a little bit more to talk about. But for right now, and at least the next, through at least through the end of the year, I'll probably be doing every other week, like I have been doing. Um, it's a little bit of change. I've changed the title instead of just being generally about the books. I've just decided to start calling these things on writing and such. And as the name implies, we're talking about writing and most, pretty much most anything else that has to do with writing. Excuse me. So, um, so let's start off with a little bit of background. Um, for those of you who don't know, I'm a longtime retail wage slave with aspirations of literary adequacy. Originally born in New York, currently live in Central Florida, aka the land that time remembered, with my cat Brenna. I discovered science fiction at an early age, growing up on Star Trek, Lost in Space, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Captain Scarlet, and Thunderbirds. I've always had an active imagination. While I always played with the toys I got for Christmas and my birthday, I always had more fun playing with the boxes. They allowed me to stretch my imagination more. Um, I started writing in 1975. Though the term wasn't known at the time, at least by me. Those first things the were some very bad fan fictions based on Space 1999. Emphasis on bad. Horrendous would be a better word. And before anybody asks, no, there are no more copies. They've all been destroyed. Um, I started writing seriously the day after I I saw Star Wars, and to be honest, I probably wouldn't be writing today if it wasn't for my 10th grade English teacher. And to be really honest about it, writing is the only thing that keeps me sane, and I'm only truly happy when I'm writing. Uh, I tend to write mostly science fiction, fantasy, space opera, uh, kind of things, straddling the line between genres and what I usually just refer to as speculative fiction. Um, all my stories take place in one consistent universe, stretching from 13.8 billion years plus one day in the past to right now, the year 7869. I do tend to favor stories about ordinary people put in extraordinary situations, and for the most part, my main characters are women. I'm not trying to push an agenda or anything. I just feel that there's a dearth of good female characters, and I'm just trying to create the kinds of characters I'd like to read. I write more or less the same way I talk in a straightforward, colloquial manner. I don't like using big words unless I have no choice, but I do also try and define the the words as quickly as possible. After After many years spent trying to convince editors that my stories were worthy of publication, I decided to become more proactive. I started self-publishing, and to date I have published now 7 books. Um, with Eyes Open, Campfire Stories, A Bright Symmetry, The Fault Lies Not, Ray, On a Cold Wind, and Brianna and the Three. Um, the links to all the books can be found on my website, Word Boys Words, wordboy1.wixsite.com, Word Boys Words, and I'll have that in the comments below, and also later today when I repost this on YouTube, I'll have the link there too. So I I've been told that the way I write is wrong. That there's no way I could possibly write the way I do, even though all the books that I've published, all the individual stories, the 2 in With Eyes Open, the 7 in Campfire Stories, the 8 in A Bright Symmetry, and the other uh, individual stories were all written the same way. I'm referred to as what I'm referred to as what I'm talking about myself and I don't like it. Okay, um, I'm what's referred to as a seat of the pants writer or a pantser, meaning I don't use a plot outline. I generally have an idea where the story's going, but I don't have a firm idea on how to get there. Excuse me. I prefer to make it up as I go along. Um, this I feel gives the story a more organic feel to it, with each scene growing from the previous one. Um, I never could follow a plot outline because of that. I would in the early days I would make a plot outline, figure out how everything goes, and then I there were many times when I got to the end of the story and it was absolutely different from the plot outline because I came up with something different and what I thought was better. Got me some bad grades in school too, but that's beside the point. Uh, the downside is it does slow me down a bit because I have to stop and figure out what happens next. Sometimes I'll make notes, um, just general notes on what should happen coming up, and even then the order is probably going to change. Uh, so, but that works for me, and that's actually one of the things that um, what I always tell other people who write. I encourage every person who wants to try something creative, whether it's writing, art, whatever, do it. Come on, don't let anybody ever stop you. But yeah, it's getting off track. I'll get to that in a minute. What I wanted to say is, uh, in regard to my not doing it right, I refer to W. Somerset Maugham, who said there are 3 rules to writing a novel. Unfortunately, nobody knows what they are. And Hemingway, who said we are all journeymen in a craft to which there are no masters. Everybody does the same thing differently, whatever works best for you. Now, my problem with plot lines, it's all up in my head. It's where I do my real writing, subconsciously working on stories no matter what I'm doing. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now. Here in the back of my brain, I'm actually trying to figure out what happens next in Stranger, while there's another part of my brain who's getting ready to do the next editing pass on Raven, which I'll be getting to right after I finish this. But my subconscious is constantly turning over the story. I know where I've got where I've what I've gotten where what I've gone through, and then where I want to end, and what's the best way to get there. Subconsciously, always thinking about what comes next, constantly rearranging scenes and moving around plot points. And if I was using a plot outline, I'd have to redo the plot outline every time I made a change. and sometimes that's on an almost hourly basis. So I just think it gives me more freedom to write in the way that I see fit. I was really rather hoping that somebody would be asking a question, but okay. And as I said, everybody does the same thing differently. Whatever way works best for you is what you should do. I work best with no plot outline, handwriting the first draft in spiral notebooks, and typing it up as I go. The only downside is I had to stop writing in cursive because my handwriting is so bad I was having trouble reading it. So I have to print, and honestly, sometimes that's hard to read too. I've been told that I have the handwriting of a doctor. Um, to amend that a little bit, I have the handwriting of a doctor who's right-handed, trying to write with his left hand, which also happens to suffer from crippling arthritis. So after each story is finished, there's at least 4 edits, each one scheduled 6 weeks apart. That varies depending on the story. Brianna and the Three, for example, when I finally finished the last draft, it actually took about 6 editing passes before I was satisfied with it. So, guess we're going to be a little short this week. I was really hoping somebody would ask a question, but that's okay. If I can talk to myself, I've done it often enough. So, if you do have any questions, if anybody wants to ask me something, if you're coming to this I've after it's recorded, or if you're watching it on YouTube, um, something you want to know, how did I, where do I get my ideas from? Um, Anything? Why am I bothering with Facebook videos that nobody watches? Um, just let me know. Just put them in the comment section, and I will get to them. Um, Thanks. Uh, Talk to you later.